could you also provide a brief overview of your family background, including your parents?
My father is Albanian and my mother is Italian. They married in 1995. They received like the religious marriage. Till 1997 they lived in Albania. And then after the civil war happening in Albania, they moved to Italy and they stayed there until now. My father is a typical, very black and white, very strong character. It's like a rose, but with a lot of spines, very spines. And he's also an artist. He's a painter. He knows everything about culture. It's like, we call it the encyclopedia. He's very strong, but it's not too much like, too much strong in our family. He gives the strong view. He gives us the strong education. He gives the direction to go on. And my mother is more soft. Is more easygoing, but sometimes he's even stronger than my father. We think like when couple is ideal when there is yin-yang, right? And even if you say yin-yang, they also have a small yang inside. This is exactly my parent. Mm-hmm. So sometimes my father is considered the strong one, so the black one, and my mother the more white. But sometimes mama is more strong than father and vice versa. And father is a little bit more sweet and more welcoming. So the balance altogether is like a really healthy environment for me.
So I was born in America. My parents, they married in 1992, and for a while they were working in church in America, and I was also born there. My father is Chinese, from mainland China, and my mother is Japanese American. So she was born in Japan, Okinawa, and then she moved to America when she was a teenager, together with her family, to Hawaii. So my father, he is a very patient man, he's been a missionary for basically since he joined the church. And my mom, she's even though she's Japanese, people have this impression that Japanese are very polite, very sweet, sometimes quiet and elegant, but she's very American, in fact. She's very passionate. She loves, she laughs really loud, like, ha ha ha, she also makes a lot of jokes, so if she's like fire and among my parents, my father is more like water or the earth. I don't know. And, my parents and I are quite close, I would say. I think it's really because since we were young, my parents, even though they were strict, but they gave us independence and also respect and also fairness. Oftentimes I hear people in the family when they're the oldest, they're given a lot of responsibility and they spoil the youngest kid, all these things. But then my parents were always very fair. If me and my siblings fight, they'll listen to what happened, and then whoever's wrong, you have to apologize. But also at the same time, because they were always able to listen to what we have to say. Sometimes if we really say something and my parents are wrong, then they will apologize and say, okay, sorry. So, because we were given this kind of respect as we grew up, and also they always asked us to make our own decisions. They will always just give guidance, but they will never push us to do certain things. So because of that, all of my siblings, we feel quite safe to talk to them and really trust them. So whenever we have problems, we have, some things we would like to seek for advice, we will go to them and just share openly among the family.
I remember very vividly when I was a young kid, every vacation we did together. Because family life somehow is always hard. Work is stressful and you come back in school and the daily life. But when you go out from the daily basis, you go vacation, it's another atmosphere, you're more free. And I remember vividly, and I remember my parents push hard in this way. Every Saturday, they try to, how can I say, stimulate us. So we go to art visit or we go to one park every Saturday. And I know for them has been very tiring. Just, kids bringing and, after the day after you have work. But this effort was very vivid, was very valid because now I felt, when I remember all of this. I remember, just going there together, just this moment very vividly. And when I think about this moment, I also told her, in my family, I want to do the same. Because from everything, I remember this vividly. And for me, this is pure love, it's pure, it's not who is your father, who is your mother, it's just an emotion that I have. It's not, what they taught me, it's not what of course they taught me as well. But this is not just pure happiness, just pure freedom. This is something, it's really in my heart.
I grew up in China, actually. When my parents got married, my father really wanted to bring God back to his own nation. As you know, in China, it's a communist country. Religion is kind of forbidden there, and people don't really talk about God or anything. So then my father had this dream of really wanting to bring God back to his own nation. That's why when I was maybe around 2.5, my family moved to China. And in my childhood, my father was quite absent because he was always very busy with mission. Most of the time, we'll be staying with my mom. But actually, I think my mom did a really good job raising us because she really tried to give us a lot of love and attention. She really brought a lot of memorable experiences for us. I think it's a little bit similar to Erik's parents, where my mom will always bring us to museums. She'll always take us to visit historical sites. And then I remember she even organized a few families that are also in the church. And then she even took us to this milk factory to see how the milk that we drink every day, how it was being packaged and created. So that all of these things left, I feel like I had a really happy childhood. Of course, I couldn't see my father so much, but at the same time, it created a lot of good memories for all of my siblings. And I think regarding my father, even though he was he was absent in especially the early stage of my life, and sometimes we will wonder or complain oh, why isn't Papa always with us? Why are we living such a poor life? Because as missionaries, you don't really have a lot of money. And then we always have friends who are very rich. They live in a villa, they own few houses and nice car. And we wonder why do we have to live such life? But then my mother will always give us, besides the love and attention she gives us, she also really guided us to respect our father, because she said, your father is really trying to do something for God, and you should really respect that as children. So I think in that way, my parents were really able to support and coordinate each other. Of course, even though they're not the sweetest, loving, lovey-dovey couple, but then we can see this strong support that they have each other really set kind of a secure environment for us that, okay, our parents is always there for each other, and this family will always stay strong together. Yeah. I think one of the most important tradition or practices that my parents really practice in my family that really have a big impact on me is that my parents always ask us to make our decisions in life together with God. No matter it's about which university to go, what should I study, whether I should take a gap year to go abroad to experience new things, or even getting married to this man. My parents always say, like, we can only give you advice and guidance, but we cannot make this decision for you. You have to really offer every decision you make in life to God. And then I can really see that helped me a lot in my life, because every step I take, I don't just wander around like, oh, maybe I made the wrong decision, but because every time when I make these important decisions, I pray, I discuss with my parents. Of course, I also receive a lot of help and support from a lot of people, but at the end, I can always be like sure that this is a decision that I would not regret. So I learned to really take responsibility for all the decisions I take in my life. So I think that's one of the most like precious lessons that my parents taught me, that I feel like I will always carry along in my life.
It's funny because this is a question actually her mother asked me when we were, in the process of, it is the right person, she wanted to know what are your tradition, how your parents teach you the divine, our culture. And for me, it was difficult to answer because in my family, it was never something very formal. Instead, it was a natural way. You're eating, you speak about something, school, and then you develop the conversation, and the conversation goes to who is God, what is the role. So it's a natural way of educating, this is the future, school and religion is just a system for making you grow, but ideally, it's the family that teach you, this is the way of learning. You don't have to sit in a table, listen a lecture, and this is absurd. It's not ideal. Ideal is you need a natural way of understanding. Through doing something, you learn. Through eating, drinking coffee, chit chat, you learn and you develop. This is the natural way. So for me, they say like, if you want to hate something, you have to study it. I don't know if you heard about it. You like architecture? Okay. You want to hate it? Start studying architecture. Go to your architecture university. You will hate it. And for me, all this culture, I could never hate it because I was never educated this way. It was a natural way. And at the end, I deeply love my parent. I deeply love my mama. I deeply love my father. For me, and this education, all the what our church tradition, who is our leaders, what is the message, what is the truth, was a natural consequences of loving my parents. So I accept everything through love. I didn't, I get educated. So, I get bored. It was a natural way. It was a natural way to approach. So how can I answer to her mama answer? I don't know. This is difficult.
Sure.
So I hope this, the way of expressing is clear. It was a natural process. And for me, accepting our movement tradition, our church tradition was natural because I accept my parents first. And I see they love each other. I see they love me. I see a healthy environment. I want to do the same. I want to go on with this because this is truth. I see the truth. I experience the truth. The only formula is to be hungry about life, to live, to don't sleep, to don't chill every day. Chill sometimes, but don't chill, to live. And I know this message came also from the leader of our church, Father Moon and Mother Moon, because they lived like this all their life, never sleeping. For many years they never slept more than 3 hours. This desire of, making something for the world, never sleeping, never, this is the only way of life. Not any formula. These are important, but not so important.
This is a concept I think we also educate a lot in our movement also a lot by Father Moon and Mother Moon. They said we always have to take responsibility. But the more important thing that I wanted to emphasize that I gained from my parents is that there should never be resentment when we take responsibility. Because we emphasize so much on responsibility, especially I grew up in Asia, in China, where it's very competitive. It's exactly the opposite of his family where you grew up. My parents never forced me, but when you grow up in an environment when it's so competitive, you must succeed in life. You must enter a good university. You must do this, you must do that. You feel this kind of pressure because it's not just your parents, your relatives, your school, your teachers. They're all having this high expectation. You either succeed or you fail or you're just failure. But then what my parents really taught me is whatever we do, we should never have resentment towards people, towards what we're doing, because when you're forced to do something, it's against your will. And when it's against your will, that's when you feel pushed, you feel forced, and when you have some sort of resentment in your heart. And sooner or later, these resentment will come up for sure, in different ways. Through, it can affect your relationship with your family, your friends, between husband and wife, So then so my parents have been really, they've been leaders in the church, they've been my parents, leading the family. But then when they notice, we are asked to do something where we're given certain responsibility and we start to feel resentful, why do I have to do this? My parents will stop us, if you have resentment, then stop it. Because if you continue with this attitude and you keep doing what you're doing, it's not the right attitude. And this is not, an offering that you can offer to God. This is the wrong motivation. And you should always willingly take this responsibility with all your heart and all your mind. So that's why that really helped me in life, because I feel whenever I notice this kind of negative or difficult feelings towards someone, towards something, I will always try to process this first before I can really proceed with my decision. So I think this was one of the valuable lessons that I learned from my parents.